Alright, what's up guys, Joel here back with another video, and today we're going to be talking about biceps. Now, for me, biceps have been one of those relatively stubborn muscles to grow. Like, I clearly have solid bicep genetics, but they're not as good as my tricep genetics, and this kind of got me thinking, hey, what can I do to make them better, right? So, through a lot of research, trial and error, listening to other people, just generally going through the motions, I found what works best for me when it comes to getting biceps, right? And I'm gonna go over that right now. It's a bit of knowing your weak points as well as knowing the science behind everything. So I'm gonna get right into it. Now, first things first when it comes to biceps is exercise selection. Now, you don't need the most perfect fancy exercise lesson. You just need to pick, I'd say, 2 to 3 solid bicep exercises, do them right, do them intensely with the intention of progressing in weight or reps over time, and you will see gains. Now, let's start with the long head of the bicep. Now, this will account for a lot of the fullness you see on the bicep, right? The long head is typically biased through any curling movement where your elbow is behind your body. So like a drag curl or a typical dumbbell curl, right? Because of the typical dumbbell curl, you have the option to put the dumbbell in front of your body, but just the way that a lot of people naturally do it, they gravitate towards putting it behind their body. Now, if you really want to just hammer in and bias the long head without worrying about getting a little bit of short head in there, getting just other muscles, a typical incline curl will be your best bet because your elbows are going to be in a compromised position behind your body, allowing your long head to do most of the work there. So if you just want pure long head, behind the body curls on an incline. Now, I think most people should probably just do typical standing dumbbell curls, at least until you get a little really good at them and you get some strength, because the incline curl is pretty hard to progress on, right? Considering the angle. But if you do get strong enough, you can add incline curls. Another approach is just to do 2 sets of typical standing dumbbell curls because you can do them heavier. So this is like, oh, this is like kind of my compound lift for bicep, right? This is what I'm using to track and get stronger, right? And you can have 2 sets of the incline curls. So it's 4 sets. You're considering it all one exercise. You're just splitting it up, and that works well. But for the long head, very simple, right? Just a standing dumbbell curl or an incline curl. Now, for the short head of the bicep, aka what holds most of the weight for the peak when you flex, is preacher curls. Now, for me, this is the part that I struggle to grow the most, simply because I have a long bicep insertion that fills out all the way. I can barely put any space in, right? Or any fingers in. So, naturally, this was the hardest part of the bicep to grow for me. And what worked for me, you guessed it, preacher curls. But I'm not going to go ahead and say any typical preacher curl, right? I'm going to say the preacher curl machine, right? There's a specific one that is particularly just better than all the rest, in my opinion, right? My problem with the spider curl, albeit it's a great exercise, 7, 8 out of 10, is that the stretch on it, you tend to lose a bit of tension, right? Whereas it has a 10 out of 10 contraction, it's amazing, you do lose a bit of tension on the stretch. It's just something I personally notice. It's not huge, but there is a slight loss of tension. Now, when it comes to just typical preacher curls, right, the typical barbell, the problem with this is that it hurts my elbow a little bit, and if you come up a little too much, you lose tension, and that's very annoying to focus on your workout. Like, it takes away from the movement loses integrity, and it feels a lot less natural stopping right here as opposed to here. Albeit good stretch, good contraction, but you do have to watch out for the contraction. In addition to that, you can also load up a pretty good amount of weight on this, whereas on a spider curl, it's very hard to. But like I said, it's typically a little more dangerous on the joints, and the contraction is a bit weird, and you can kind of stump yourself by contracting too much, which is not something you really want to have to deal with. Now, the best variation of the preacher curl I found was a preacher curl machine, because when I did this machine, first off, absolutely no joint pain, no pain in my elbow whatsoever. I was able to load up very good weight, so you can tell you're going to be able to progress over time. There was no loss of tension at the peak, no matter how far you went up, just because of the bench, the padding, and the angle. And it was an insane contraction. And there was no loss of tension on the stretch. And the stretch was amazing. It checked every single box out without having any problems. The only problem is not every gym has a very solid preacher curl machine. I think it was a newer one, but I'm probably gonna throw up like an image or try to get a video right on the screen, just showing how good the preacher curl machine is. And if you can get access to this preacher curl machine, holy shit, do it. I'm under the impression that if this was the only bicep exercise you did, this specific preacher curl machine, you would still have insane biceps. Obviously not, that's a little exaggerated, but this machine is all that good. And I'm not the type of person to blindly follow the science-based lifters and saying, oh, the machines are better, the cables are better. But when I say this is an amazing machine exercise for your short head, dude, it is insane. So yeah, if you can find just any like one of those good preacher curl machines like this, go for it. There's literally no flaws about it besides that it might be a little rare. Now, this last exercise, or second to last, I guess, it's just a hammer curl or reverse curl. You want a bicep curl that also biases the form. If you don't plan to have a lot of direct form work, you probably should have one. And even then, you should still have one of these curls that hit the form because it trains the explosiveness of the brachioradialis. With wrist curls and reverse curls, you don't get that explosiveness, right? And the brachioradialis is a very powerful explosive form muscle. So you are like missing out on gains by not at least doing some heavy training. Maybe not missing out on gains, but you could be making more out of the muscle in general, right? So yeah, either a hammer curl or a reverse curl. What I like about the hammer curl is that it doesn't hurt in any way, shape, or form for me, and you can go super heavy on it. So it's like a good compound lift for your bicep, essentially, where you can track progress and overload it over time. Whereas the other curl variations are a little bit hard to progress on, especially for me. Hammer curls are not hard to progress on at all. And when I did progress on the hammer curl, it had carryover to my other exercises as well. So hammer curl is amazing just for the fact that you get your biceps stronger over time. And getting stronger is a key component to muscle growth. Now, and obviously the reverse curl. This is a little worse, I feel like, because it's harsher on your wrist and you can use a lot less weight on it. Now, it's a lot more efficient at biasing the forms, but it takes away some of the bicep. Now, this is like a exercise, A tier, whereas I'd rank the hammer curl as S tier. But yeah, the reverse curl is good as well. Like another approach you could take, like, is with the typical curls and incline curls, right? You can have 2 of your first sets be really heavy hammer curls with just a little bit of cheating and swinging to overload. And then you can have the reverse curls to really get like the science and hypertrophy and control aspect, really get your forearms burning, right? So yeah, those are pretty much the only 3 necessary exercises. And the fourth one is like an honorable mention is chin-ups or supinated lat pull-downs, I'd say, right? Because chin-ups, it's unique to the typical other curls in that you're taking the bicep through a full range of motion under a heavy load through not only your elbow joint like the other curls, but your shoulder joint. So it has a unique range of motion as well as it being functional. And it's just an overall good exercise. It feels amazing on the forearms and the biceps, the lats as well. And there's like really no downside to doing it. And because it's a calisthenic, granted you don't do it with like extra weights attached, or you could, but granted you do it without the extra weights, it does not really take away from your other volume, especially if you do it at the end. I've always thrown 4 sets of dips and chin-ups in at the end of my workout. Not necessary, but it isn't something nice to have. And it's helpful for making the biceps stronger and more aesthetic. So yeah, I do love chin-ups and supinated pull-downs. That's a true compound lift for the bicep. Even if it's not something you necessarily want to do on arm day and you want to do regular pull-ups on your back day, some type of pull-ups in your routine is very beneficial for your biceps. So yeah, exercise selection is relatively simple. Now, this next thing I'm going to be speaking on is rep ranges. I'm going to keep this part very simple, very easy to understand. Overall, I feel like the best rep range for biceps is 10, right? 6 to 10. What I do is I get a weight that I can do for 6 reps. I stick with it until I'm able to perform 10 reps with good form. Then I move to the heaviest weight that I can do for 6 reps. And I keep doing that. If you're somebody with a stubborn muscle group, you want a very good mix of those heavier, more intense sets to get you stronger and progressive overload, and those more moderate sets like the 8 to 12 rep range, so you can actually focus on form, the eccentrics, lactic acid buildup, blood buildup in the muscle, right? You want a bit of both. I guess what I'm trying to say is a powerlifting approach is good because you're going to be getting the best of both worlds, right? And this especially helps for me because that first 2 weeks where I'm really struggling on getting it past 6 to 8 reps, I'm getting noticeable strength gains. And then after that, the 8 to 10 rep range, I'm still getting noticeable strength gains, but these are all going to be a lot more hypertrophy gains because my form is going to be a lot more fitter. I can stabilize it. I can slow the concentric. I can add intensity techniques to my sets because I'm just stronger and more conditioned with the weight. So yeah, getting the rep range from 6 to 10 is smart. Like my first 2 sets also could just be 6 reps and then I'll drop the weight and do 10 reps, right? Like for me, I'll do 2 sets of standing bicep curls with 70 pounds with a little bit of swinging just to overload the bicep, get it stronger. And then on my 3rd and 4th set, I'll drop the weight to something like 55-pound dumbbells and I'll do it for like 10 reps or 11 or 12, however many I can do to really focus on the contraction, the stretch, the science shit, right? So you're getting the best of both worlds. You want to train smart like a science lifter in some aspects and get strong as fuck. I feel like that's the best way. A little bit of aggressiveness and idiocy with intellect. So like the brand name Controlled Insanity is good for just growth in the gym in general. So yeah, 6 to 10 rep range I found the very best to be for arms. I'm gonna list some just general things to keep in mind and then I'm gonna wrap it all up in the next part. Now, do not neglect your forearm training. You need to get your forearms strong because if your forearms are not strong enough to keep up with your biceps, they will hold you back on your curls. This will stop you from taking your biceps for failure and stop you from progressing over time. So don't neglect your form and your grip strength. You can get your grip strength up through deadlifts or dead hangs like I do at the end of every session. However you want to do it, whatever works for you, go for it. But do not neglect forms. They do really tie into how good your biceps are. It's very rare that I see someone with bad biceps and bad forearms. It's like never. So yeah, don't neglect your forearms. But also, do not neglect to let your biceps help you in back movements. I think it's become very common for people to, all right, how can I bias my back? How can I bias my triceps? How can I take my triceps? How can I take my biceps out? Your body's not meant to work like that. You do want to still allow your biceps to work on your back movements. Of course, bias your back over everything with proper form, but do not completely take your back out of it because your bicep does see substantial physical gains as well as strength gains from your compounds. So neglecting it on a row or just altering all of your back movements to where your biceps are not active, unless you have better biceps than Chris fucking Bumstead himself, you do not need to be doing shit like that. As long as your form is good on back and you have insane intensity, you do not need to worry about taking your biceps out. So yes, do not neglect your biceps progress through compounds. That will help a lot. Another little thing in general, you don't have to do the most slow eccentric, but a relatively slow eccentric with a squeeze. Most people don't actively really squeeze. They kind of just go up and that's actually good enough and it suffices. But if you want a little bit extra, go up on your curls or just any bicep movements in general and actually like flex it and squeeze your form into your bicep, squeeze the bicep, and you'll get a lot more blood in the muscle and it'll just feel better and you'll get more bicep activation over time. But yeah, those are just some little pointers for the biceps as well. And there you have it for biceps. You just need a solid exercise selection, training with intensity, progressing over time, choosing exercises that, hey, are hard to progress on but can bias certain muscles, and other exercises where, hey, they hit a good mix of everything, but they're easy to progress on and they'll overload me over time, as well as just keeping a few things in mind, like keeping your forearms conditioned, and you will get big biceps over time. It's not that hard. If you're a guy that starts at, hey, like a 10-pound bicep curl, right? And over a 2-year period, you train hard with the intention of getting stronger with proper form and solid exercise selection, and you go up to a 40-pound curl, which most men can certainly achieve, you will see substantial progress in your biceps. So yeah, biceps are not a complicated muscle to grow. Understand how to hit them with proper exercise selection, have a mix of rep ranges that allow you to get, you know, your strength gains and your more science-based hypertrophy functional gains, as well as keeping the small shit in mind, and you will see good bicep growth. But yeah, there you have it. The simple guide to getting big biceps. It's really not that hard. Especially for me, someone who doesn't have a crazy peak. I've seen a lot of peak progress in the last 2 years. So you can trust me. But yeah, let me know what videos you guys want to see next, and I'm out.